Why was this movie so good? Hi, welcome to the channel. This channel exists to inspire imagination through entertainment, and today we are looking at Puss in Boots 2, or Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. This is both a spoiler-free and spoiler review of the movie. I'll let you know once we get to the spoilers. I have to immediately say that this movie is absolutely stellar. If you just want to know if this movie is worth watching, then yes it is. This film excels at every aspect imaginable as both a sequel and a new story with Puss & Co. The animation, action, humor, themes, characters, and payoffs are all done so expertly. But let's reset and start slow. What's the story here? So Puss in Boots is down to his last life, and he is terrified as the dangers of the world set in and bounty hunters come to collect his head. This drives Puss to pursue the wishing star so he can regain his lost lives. Puss isn't alone though. He's joined by Kitty Softpaws and Pero the dog, and they're not alone in the hunt for the wish, as other criminals such as Goldilocks and the Three Bears and the notorious Little Jack Horner are also setting out for the star in hopes of granting their own wishes. Starting with the negatives, I think this movie had a rough start. The first act of the movie is pretty cramped as Puss has to lose his 8th life, fall into a depression, learn about the wishing star, assemble his team, and then we can start the journey. As a result, the beginning can feel rushed. Puss loses his life about 8 minutes into the movie, but then you get to the part in the cat house, which was by far the low point of the movie. This part is slow and the humor drops in quality. The story here is also extremely predictable. This movie is the definition of the real treasure was the friends we made along the way. But it's executed very well, so predictability is fine overall, and really that's what makes this movie so good. This movie talks about fear and if it's okay to be scared sometimes, ultimately resulting in a lesson about living your best life and that it's worth the stress and the fear. And the holy centerpiece of this film is hands down the animation. It's really fascinating to see the wave of new animation styles that's followed Spider-Man Into the Spider-Verse's wake. Obviously each studio has their own take, but this blend of 3D, 2D, cel-shaded animation has really widened artistic mediums in the industry. And perhaps the most potent evidence of this can be seen at DreamWorks. With the release of The Bad Guys, DreamWorks proved that they're not afraid to experiment with their theatrical releases. And they pushed the envelope even further with Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. I don't know how they did it, but they created a perfect hybrid between mainstream 3D animation and the new and popular blend of 2D animation. Because when you look at stills or posters for this movie, you can hardly tell the animation style changed. It looks like an immediate sequel to the first movie. But when there's swift motion and they start incorporating smears and intentional frame drops, you can really see how dynamic the action is. And my goodness, are the fight scenes absolutely breathtaking. Each character has their own signature style. Puss and Kitty showcase finesse, the wolf is savage and relentless, and Goldilocks and the Three Bears are clumsy yet unstoppable. There's such a slickness to the choreography and movement of it all. And with this new form of animation, DreamWorks chose to bring an aspect of stylization to this movie as well. While the first movie was edited in a very straightforward manner, like let's have this scene, now our characters have to go here, so let's cut to them traveling. But with this movie, they incorporated transitions and music montages during scenes that are meant to feel drawn out. Puss, for example, would be limping through the desert, and the frame is cropped in the shape of him or his boots, and it really gives the film a Western style. This applies to the mise-en-scène or framing of the scenes as well. There's a lot of wonderful shots in the movie, one in particular involving the wolf character's shadow enveloping Puss as he hides in fear. On top of all of that, I really must point out how the environments have been turned up to an 11 with the new art style. Everything is so vibrant and colorful. Most of the movie takes place in a forest that can change settings, and you can tell it was mainly an excuse for the artist to show off. In one scene alone, the characters find themselves in a field of magma, but instantly gravity can disappear, creating a localized asteroid field. We're in a time where DreamWorks is outclassing Disney and Pixar in the medium they pioneered. The last thing I want to talk about is the characters of the movie. Of course, we're starting with the legend himself, Puss in Boots, played by Antonio Banderas. A lot of great character building is done to Puss in this movie, because essentially what this film tells us is that through all of the events of the first movie, as well as the Shrek films, Puss has been operating off of false bravery. Now that doesn't mean Puss is any less of a heroic character, he still chose to be good, it's just that he's had this flaw that even he didn't know about himself until now. So to take a character whose defining character traits are his charisma and ego, and to take it all away and say, no, you don't deserve the life you're living, and you have to not only earn it back, but you have to be better. It's such a bold thing to do with a spin-off character from Shrek. Kitty Softpaws is another character that gets some improvement. She's largely the same as she is in the first movie, but she takes a more partner-like role with Puss here. In the first movie, they were more like competitors, and here she just wants to be there for him, while not completely trusting him. I always really enjoy her dynamic with Puss though, I think they're a perfect match. For Pero, the new dog character, and the final piece of this movie's trio, I'm a little mixed. He was definitely the least enjoyable character just because he's like the peppy character you see in a lot of movies targeted towards kids. You know, like your Olaf, your Rhino, your Unikitty, and sometimes they're done well like with Forky, but most of the time they're not because they're designed to be annoying. On the flip side though, Pero has a tragic backstory, and his goal is to be a therapy dog, so he's very much the heart of the film, and his character serves a core purpose, so at least he has that going for him, but he's still definitely my least favorite character. Next up we have Goldilocks and the Three Bears, who ended up surprising me. I fully expected them to be the grunts of the film, but no, they were actual characters with their own desires and their own character arcs. Granted, it's a very basic arc, but it's just enough to make them memorable. The real villain of the film is Little Jack Horner. If you take Mr. O'Hare from the Lorax and combine him with the physique of Kingpin from Into the Spider-Verse, you get Little Jack Horner. This man is already the most powerful person around, and he's just a greedy little menace, and that makes him a complete delight to watch. Everything he does is just some form of comically cruel gag, whether he's collecting unicorn horns or abusing his staff members. He's by far the least developed character, but that's totally fine. We don't need to sympathize with this monster, we can just laugh at his antics. Along with Jack Horner is a very minor character, but one that's the source of a lot of humor in the movie, and that character being Jiminy Cricket. Jiminy is in the movie purely to exaggerate Jack Horner's sadism. It's DreamWorks going back to their Shrek roots and making a parody of a story Disney popularized. The relationship here is take Pinocchio and Jiminy Cricket, except Pinocchio is very much into genocide, and it just creates excellent comedy. And let's just appreciate the voice actor Kevin McCain for using such a hilarious voice in the role. 10 out of 10 performance, honestly. But the real scene stealer is the wolf, or the bounty hunter. He's not in the film much, he makes about 3 appearances total, but he is 100% the highlight of this movie. Every time he shows up, the whole tone of the film changes, because his character just demands that much control. Everything about this character is excellent, from his mannerisms to his motivations to his presence. He's just a force of nature, and he definitely elevated the film. Now with all of that said, would I rewatch Puss in Boots: The Last Wish? So what makes this film so strong is that every single character arc is paid off in the climax. No matter what perspective you're watching the movie from, it's satisfying. You could watch from Goldilocks' perspective, or Kitty's, or Pero's, and you'd be happy. That's what's so great about the wishing premise. Everyone's ambitions are clearly laid out, so when they all fight in the end, they're all equally deserving of the wish, except Jack Horner. It worked for Stardust, and it works here. By the way, go watch Stardust, I love that movie so much. So with that, 100% yes, I would rewatch Puss in Boots: The Last Wish. Congratulations on making it this far. If you care about spoilers, then this is where we say goodbye, because we are now talking about spoilers. All set? Alright, let's talk about some spoilers. For once, I actually don't have much to say in the spoiler section of this video. Starting off with a smaller point, I think it's a really wonderful idea that Puss's first experience with fear was his wedding with Kitty. I like this because it shows that some things in life can transcend lifetimes, such as love. Among all of the times Puss has faced death, love is the one thing that can pierce through his handful of lives and hit Puss in the core. He's like an onion, where his lives are his layers and his heart is his core. Either all of that, or they're saying marriage is comparable to the end of your life. Just kidding. The other thing I wanted to bring up is that I think having death in this movie is a little too on the nose. If you aren't aware, the wolf bounty hunter character is revealed to be the manifestation of death. I really do love the idea of the Grim Reaper seeing this guy waste his life and be like, yeah, he's done. We know where this goes. Might as well cut to the chase. He reminded me of Rattlesnake Jake from Rango, who serves a very similar purpose of humbling the hero. The reason I say he's too on the nose is that instead of Puss facing the primary villain and experiencing fear naturally, they felt the need to create a whole new character dedicated to this weakness. They could have taken Jack Horner and given him the wolf's traits, but nevertheless, I'm happy that he's in the movie because of how cool he was. That shot of Puss hiding in the bathroom and Death's shadow just filling the room was perfect. And his final duel with Puss was the most thrilling fight scene I've seen all year. And that will about do it for my Puss in Boots The Last Wish movie review. I was very fortunate to see this early at my local Cinemark, so thank you to Cinemark for showing this movie early. And what did you think about the movie? Did you like it better than the first? Let me know in the comments, and subscribe, as well as check out some of my other videos. But in the meantime, I'll see y'all later. Bye.
Torn to oblivion. I flare red wrong, yeah, I came in with a song, ooh, yeah, I came in with a song, ooh, bitch, I flare red wrong, yeah, bitch, I flare red wrong, yeah, walking in trap like a boss, 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 yeah, I came in with a sauce, yeah, I came in with a sauce.
So when I was younger, I really wanted to watch the first Puss in Boots movie, and my dad, for some reason, wouldn't take me, even though we went to movie theaters like all the time. He just didn't feel like watching the movie or something. So out of spite, you know, as a young child, I went out with my own money and I bought the movie when it came out on Blu-ray, and I proceeded to watch it 26 times on loop just to prove a point, just to be like, hey, I would have loved this movie. This is what you took away from me. So this is now my favorite movie, even though the movie's kind of meh. So, and oh, by the way, I'm not talking about like just playing in the background, watching it 26 times. I'm talking about sitting down and concentrating on it 26 times. So, you know, I think I was destined to watch the second movie in theaters. I was so determined. When I saw that they announced the second movie, I was like, I have to watch the second movie no matter if it looks good or bad. I have to watch this movie in theaters just to make up for missing out on the first movie. But luckily this movie was really good and the first movie is kind of meh. So I guess I have to watch this movie when it comes out on Blu-ray 4K 26 times to just make up for that. Yeah.